I tell them that we're going into this entertainment type mode in the church, where we remove the pulpits and going into these stages. Now, people look at that, and it's contemporary, and churches got the right to make that decision. And what it basically does is take the sanctuary out, and this conversation has been around since the 70s. You take the sanctuary out, and you make this into a worship center, entertainment. So you can do it's an all-purpose type. Now, that may be nice, except when you're spending $1 million to do it. And it's expensive. That's what they cost, $1 million plus. And so we're taking money to do that, and we don't have money for evangelism or Christian education. And people are going in. So we do the same thing. So the church has got a ton of debt, and we do the same thing with our own personal, because we see something and we want to copy that. It may be a car, it may be a house, living in a neighborhood that we ain't got no business in. Somebody says, man, I can afford the mortgage, but you can't do any maintenance on the house. Can't keep the grass cut because it's expensive. And then it becomes evident. You drive in a car and they get scratches all on it, and you can't file insurance because you don't want the premium to go up. But your car is looking like, you don't drive a car like that and you got scratches on it. So, covetousness, criminal addictions. You start robbing God. I start robbing God in tithe and offering. So, do we pay on gross or net? Somebody said gross. Somebody said what the blessed on? Net, gross. Then you got the Social Security calculations and so forth. But a lot of people struggle with that. Gross or net. How much offering should you give? 5%, 10%, 20%? Right? There's some passages that say Israelites gave up to 30% in offering. Yeah, 40% of their income went to the work of the Lord. 40%, y'all talking about, that's a lot of money. But that's Israel. They did that. So you have to really be tight on on how you're living when you start getting up to that. But what you don't want to do is we don't want to rob God in tithe and offering over a few pennies. Right? It's not worth it. Because if we're not faithful to the Lord now and we see this stuff passing away, then we're not going to be faithful later. Any questions, comments? Does that make sense? Yeah. And and if it's something hitting you, just you know what you got to do. You work it out. You don't have to be confessing and I'm guilty. No, we don't. It's not that kind of meeting. Just we trying to enjoy and fellowship and so forth. So Kunzu said, financial wellness means to be well off, being stable and able to provide comfortably for oneself and one's family. Provide a good education for the children, ensuring them a good, secure future. Financial wellness means security, comfort, more often than not, a much more relaxed and stressless life. And that's really what you want. That's what I want, especially when we get into our senior years. We don't want to be coming, I talked to a person once, and he wasn't able to go to church because he didn't have gas money for the car. And we're not talking about a young person, I'm talking about an older person. I've gone to people and they can't turn the air conditioner on, the lights, and so forth. Y'all look at individuals and you look at them, you don't want to see somebody whose shoes are not where they need to be. Feet, you're tearing your feet up. And you get to that point, it's not necessarily their fault, but circumstances and then not knowing how to deal with that. But that hurts, especially in the household of faith. Nobody in the household of faith should be suffering like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. And we are our brother's keeper, by the way. So if we have an abundance, we talk about the early church and they sold all that they had and helped each other out, and we're sitting in the church and we have people in the faith and we know that they don't have, and we sit back and we're not doing anything to try to help them, we're really denying the faith. Yes, Sister Savannah. Yeah, to ministry. Yeah, and we do that. I mean, we'll put money up. My church is going through a situation right now. We got 58 members. So they purchased land before I got there. They were just organized as a church a couple of years ago. I'm the first pastor that they've had. They've been operating under the first church. Purchased land. So we got a building project that we were in. It was probably about around a $2 million project. There were about 58 members, mostly senior. So we raised, we got about 850,000 cash. We've done about 4 in the two and a half years I've been there. And so that's real good, yeah. So we found a building. I'm not all that excited about it, but we found a building, about 8,500 square feet, brick, nice building, in a different part of, on the other side of Huntsville, and they want about $675,000 for it. It's a nice church. So the members voted to get that. We working on the contract and so forth, and I kicked against it for a while. So, but you all said you want to go here, we build a church. But the bottom line said, we don't want no debt. And since we're a commuter church anyway, it really doesn't matter where the church is at. And we can pay for it and have money in the bank and do some other things. And that makes a difference in the church. But one of the things that you want to be able to do is make sure you can help your members. And if we're spending all of our money on things that are not transcribing to help people, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice. You gotta help people. There are people with needs. You gotta be able to help people with needs, and that's really the most important thing. Fulane said that financial wellness is holistic approach into personal financial management. So it looks at behavioral finance, which is highly specialized based on understanding people's emotional beings and trying to predict and justify their actions with financial scientific models. People look at spending, basically here is that when people look at strategies to control finances, what happens is that we don't look at the emotional effect that goes into money and why people spend money and why people do things. So when you look at a lot of commercial appeals, Apple does that. Apple says that we will create what you want. So they create products and say this is what you need. So we got these smart watches and these phones and these Mac computers and so forth. They look at these cars. One of my members this past Sabbath, I saw these wings flapping up on the car. I mean, they were way up. And when wings went up, the doors opened up, and it was a Tesla. And I said, they said, one of my members went and got a Tesla, and I can see the car across the thing, and I mean, them wings went up in the back and so forth. So I told him, I said, now, you could at least waited until we purchased the building before you went off and got this vehicle. And so we just kind of laughed and so forth. But, and I told him the technology is fine. For me personally, I'm not a techie person, and I'll probably kick the windows out trying to get out of there. Some of y'all, I don't know how many who's not anybody's techie in here? Anybody's not a technical person? I'm not the only one. You get in these cars, because you can't open them sometimes, right, William? Some of these cars, you can't open them. They'll take over the wheel. You driving, they'll start driving and all this other stuff. So if you don't know what you're doing, I'm trying to wave in one vehicle. I was looking at a Volkswagen, and they said, Dr. Brown, this is, you need to look. One of our former students was working in fleet for VW. He said, man, look, we got a new one out, and you'll be the first one in Huntsville to get this. And you got to wave to change the air and the sound. I test drove it, but I couldn't even adjust the sound, and I'm doing all, and I gave it back to him. I said, I need instruments I can control. But they look at behavioral stuff. And the way things are going with a lot of the young people now, these little kids, they're into tech. They're gearing their minds up for tech. And eventually, all of this AI that we look at, we laugh at it, these iRobots and so forth, but really that stuff is real. And it's gonna start doing a whole lot of stuff that we're not gonna be comfortable with. And this stuff with AI and this learning and everything, which we're dealing with academia. So behavioral stuff. If you ever gone and looked on your computer, you go to search something to buy, and next thing you know, you keep seeing all of these ads coming up. Yeah, they profiling all of us. So when they look at spending habits, they can tell our spending habits, and if they see a dent in the armor, they're gonna come after you. They'll start sending you credit cards and everything else, and a lot of people, we give to that. So we just have to be careful. It's a it's a behavioral thing. Consumer finance is about behavior. All right, where's he at? And when y'all get y'all bigger screen, y'all be able to appreciate this. We move it up and drop it down about right there. So there are some strategies for looking at financial wellness, which is important. And there are more, but this is the number one thing is embrace God's ownership and be faithful. Proverbs 21:24 and verse 1. The earth is the Lord. God owns everything, the fullness thereof. Determine where you are financially. When you're writing everything down, you look, some people don't know where their money is going because they don't keep a record. But when you start looking at where your money is going, man, I didn't even know I had this. And you look at those cable bills, now some are live streaming. I think how many of y'all live streaming stuff now? Y'all done found a way to beat the cable people, right? Some of y'all know how to, I'm still, they still got me hooked because I want a channel or two and I can't get this, and they got to buy this package. I'm saying it's got to be, they said, Dad, you can live stream now. You don't have to go through all of that. But I said, I don't want to, because you want stuff simple. So that's what they know how to get. They know there's a certain group of people, but you got to look at what you're paying for this stuff. Plan for the expected through savings and investments, and we'll talk about that. Nobody intentionally gets wealthy. Dennis Kimbrough got a book on black wealth, and he talks about, I think there's about 10,000 black millionaires, or and how they got wealthy. And then Dave Ramsey, they've done research on this stuff. And the biggest part of wealth building is through real estate. Because, of course, real estate overnight in Houston, like if it's like Huntsville, everything is double. So you buy the house cheap, you hold it, next thing you know it's worth 3 times what you paid for it, and a good Adventist is going to sell them for 4 times what it's worth. And people will, and that's how people build their wealth. A lot of it is exploitation with that. I talk and preach to folks, and then I ask them the question, is it godly? See, is it godly? Is it righteous to do that? You know what I'm saying? Patriarchs and prophets on the commandments, on the men stealing, Ellen White talks about God holds us accountable if we take advantage of people in financial dealings because we know that they are at a disadvantage. So those are the type of spiritual things. Everything that's right in the eyes of man is not right in the eyes of God. And we have to really be careful, how we deal with people and transact business and so forth, that we're not driven by worldly greed. Prepare for the unexpected. This is what happens to a lot of us. Accidents. I'm surprised the number of people who don't have adequate auto insurance. And driving in Houston, somebody's going to hit you eventually. Right? How many of us know that? Somebody's going to hit you, or you're going to hit somebody, because they're going to slam the brakes. When they see some of them cars behind them, they're going to slam the brakes so you can rear end them. And ain't nothing, what can you say? Except they call your insurance company before you can put a claim in, and now they didn't got their thing paid out. So you got to plan for the unexpected. Medical, life insurance, people are dying, and there are no plans, no insurance, no burial, and sometimes they have to go back to the church. And these are people who should know better. You know, so that's why you do meetings like this, and even in the community, so you can help people to help themselves. And you probably have members in the church that have specialty in these areas, and people, we need to help each other with that. So you have to plan for the unexpected. You got to, we eliminate all non-essential debt, auto, credit cards, loans, mortgages. One of the strategies that the devil uses for the remnant church is that to drive us into properties. You know, Adventists like properties and worldly acquirements. We like to talk about our wealth and savings and investments, and we're putting money into the world at the expense of the work. And it's going to be hard to walk away from that. So you can't practice self-denial by not being self-denial. And denying yourself is not talking about what you can't get so you didn't get it. I used to go to the Mercedes dealer. And man, they got some expensive, man, I didn't know cars were that expensive like that. And I would walk around and look at them and, you know, but you know, I was never tempted because I couldn't afford it. And I knew I couldn't afford it, so I just go and look, you know, and say, man, this is something. And then I'll walk and drive off and be thankful, you know. But if I had the money, see what I'm saying? If I had the money and so forth, and then that would be different. But you can't deny yourself of something you can't get anyway. That's not denial. You know, a person said, I'm not interested in medical school. I'm not applying. Well, you know, you couldn't get in. So that's some things, you know, I'm not interested in engineering. If I can't do fractions, I know I'm not going to try to do engineering. So those are the type of things, but we have to be sensitive to that. Prepare an estate plan. So how many of us have current wills? One, maybe two people, three people, okay. Some of us need to update our wills, right? And some people don't have them at all, but everybody in the church. They say, well, I'm not old yet, but you don't have to be old. You have an estate if something happens. And these are the things we have to help encourage each other before we get to the point where we don't have it. Because your family members, it will divide your family. It may divide them anyway if you got multiple kids and how you leave that. Yes, ma'am. You need a will, but you can have a living trust as well. Yeah, and there are multiple things, but everything pours into from that will. And that's just basic. Now, if you got a lot of stuff in your estate, then it gets a lot more sophisticated than just the will. And you have to look at how you want the monies. If you're alive, if you want to be distributed, if you don't want your kids to go through everything and you want generational wealth, then you're going to pay a lot more money for a trust. But that's why people get them, to protect their kids from themselves and their grandkids. And they used to do, I don't know if the conference still has estate planners. Do they still do that? Wills and trusts? Yeah, they used to do that. Yeah. And get you, and all we require is that you leave with 10%. You know, that's what but the churches, I know in South Central as well, you don't hear it as much, and we losing a lot in our members. But, well, they used to ask for 10%. And you don't have to really leave anything, but that's a service of the church because your tithe and offerings were going to pay for that. Yeah. And the union, I was the trust director for 12 years when I was here. And we did seminars all over the conference. And then James Ford did it, the late James Ford and the late Elder Ellis. And properties that, hundreds of thousands of dollars in properties were left. A lot of our sister conferences, that's how they get a lot of their money. And you say, how that little church with 10 people got that big building and paid for? Because people have left them the money. So that's the key thing. But talk to Dr. Berean and see if they can, or Mr. Palmer, and just bring somebody down and just, we used to have breakfast feed you breakfast and stripples and grits, and then we would do the seminar and fill out the paperwork, and it was just basic, and then take it, and the union would do it with the attorney at no charge. And then you get a copy back, and the union kept a copy on file. And you didn't pay anything for it because you're a member of the church. You're paying for that program that they have. And that's how the General Conference gets a lot of their wealth as well, is through estate planning. Yes?
I know I had my original one done through that
Mhm.
conference, and I remember W.C. Jones
Yeah.
did a thing, and he was talking about, because I was much younger then, and he was saying, if you have one fork that's yours, you need a will.
Yeah.
That was one of the things. And with the late Brother Ellis, when I had it updated, we had to go to an attorney here in Houston. And then shortly thereafter, I got my copy back saying that they weren't doing that anymore.
Oh,
So
mercy.
they gave me, they gave me the copy that would have been at the conference office.
So the conference just, and it probably ended with Elder Ellis.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But, yeah. But other conferences are still doing it. And the union does it, and they keep copies of it on file, because that's how they get their money. They know that, if we live long enough, we're not going to be here, and those assets are going somewhere. And some people leave everything to the church.
It is written, and amazing fact,
Mhm.
they do it.
Oh, yeah.
They do it their thing.
Yeah, they'll do it. They'll gladly do it. Yeah. So those are, and you know why they do it? That's how they get their funding. So people will leave them millions of dollars for their ministry. And to these universities, I think somebody just met, McKee Building, the Southern Adventist University. They just built a new business complex in the millions. And then Zapper, they used to give those teacher excellence monies. He built a business center at La Sierra University. He just passed away, I think, or he's terminal. And these people are in the upper millionaires in the church. And of course, the McKee family, with Little Debbie's, Little Debbie snaps. That's like a little empire. So, but that's how they're going to leave their money. That's how they leave their money. Because the conference is only, we return our tithe and offerings, but our estates, if you wanted to go to the conference or to the church or to Breath of whatever, you decide where that go after, and make sure that your family understand. Because if not, it's going to be a problem. And you won't be here, but God is going to still hold you accountable. Yeah. Councils and stewardship on estate planning. So that's important. And then, so that's pretty much, let me go back to this last one. Simplify. Let me go back to this one here. Yeah. That last one, simplify. Organize your personal finances, your paper, your computer, banking, and so forth, and simplify. Now, why simplify? Why do we simplify? Yes. Yeah. Because you're going to forget, right? How many keep a password book? Yeah, a couple of people, right? Yeah. So every time, you notice now, everywhere you go almost, people want you to do an account, set up a password and so forth, and then you got to change it. And if you have a lot of activity, you have so many accounts, you won't know what you got after a while. Sometimes you think you put in a new password. I've had say, I'm going to give me a new password. Come to find out it's the same password I had before. So you forget. So they got password books where you write it down. Now, some technology have it where you can put it in the cloud. I don't know, you can put, they'll store your passwords for your different things. But why do you need a password? Why do you need to simplify? Because the older you get, the more you forget. Now, it's not that your memory is going bad. It's that the more use we have with technology, I tell the people, back in the day, some of y'all remember back in the day, before we had these cell phones, we knew the numbers in our head, didn't we? Isn't that right, Michael? Yeah. And you knew how to not get them confused. right? Look at Sister Wheels back there nodding her head. Yeah, so you knew when you called such and such, the numbers were stored up here. Remember how we used to get around in the city just writing the streets to turn and how many lights and with your little map code and you, right, without the GPS. But technology has weakened our capacity to think and memorize and retain information. Now we're smarter in the use of it, but our processing is weaker. So for instance, we have students that can't read cursive writing. Yeah, because they stopped teaching it at one time. They had stopped teaching cursive writing in the schools. And then it became all they can do is print. And I have college students say, Doc, don't write it out. I need you to print it because I can't read. Now they're starting to teach cursive writing again. They went to this funny math. And when you go to buy something, now the machines are telling them, give them 60 cents back. That's 2 quarters and a dime. Yeah. If you ever gone to these stores now, you don't have to do no thinking. And a lot of people can't think, especially analytically and can't write. So, you know, this whole thing with this AI thing now is that people are using that, and then you say, okay, tell me, how do you feel about what you just wrote? And they go blank. You give them an essay test, and they'll leave it blank because they can't write. They're not used to processing their thoughts. They're just used to clicking. And I'll have students that'll say, I prefer to I want to be on the computer learning because they don't have to interact with anybody. So we're not helping our young people and our society. And so when it comes time for having information and simplifying, if you do not keep things simple, pretty soon the clutter will overwhelm you. That's why people move into smaller houses. Less sophistication. If you can't get all of your suits in one closet, that's what I tell myself, I got a closet. And I scan my shoes, I can go like this here and go up and go down, and I know exactly what I have. Now, I'm not going to say anything about when my wife is we used to share the closet. Now that's, what I'm telling you, we used to, you had that walk-in closet together, and then your stuff gets pushed to the side. Then you're on the other side of the house with the, you know what I'm saying? Everything is, you're on the other side of the house, but a lot of us, we got so much stuff that we don't want to manage it, and our children don't want to manage it. People don't keep pictures. You think, I say, what's going to happen? Who's going to get my doctoral roll? You know what they're going to do? They're going to fold that thing up and put it somewhere. They may give it away. I don't know. They may, what are they going to hang my diplomas up? I may have to give Oakwood a big donation so they can have a room. And they put that stuff, because you know what? Our children are not going to do it. They're not putting that stuff up. They may have a picture, but even in my household, we don't have pictures up of our children, my wife and our children, and our dog that passed away. I had a picture of my mother in my room, but we don't have pictures up like that anymore. And who knows what's on that cloud? Y'all looking at that cloud, all them pictures that you're storing up there, who's going to sort through that? Nobody's sorting through no cloud. 10,000 pictures in there. Who's going through that? So you've got to, this part for your health and wellness, you have to simplify. The more you know how to get your hands on, the less stress you're going to have. You don't need 5 bank accounts now. You may need 2, and that's it. So you will know where your money's at. You're scratching your head. I don't know. I thought somebody stole my money, and there's an account that you didn't forgot. No, seriously. So you want to simplify as you get older and make sure that you have a beneficiary, your spouse, and maybe one of your children to access the money. Because if something happens, if you're traveling, like, spouses, how you go on those excursions and People want to do zip lining in Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the two of you. That's nice, but if something happens and your children, one of your children can't access your money, you're going to be in, then it's problematic. They got to go to probate and all this other stuff. So just be mindful that you got to think about who's going to handle your business. And God forbid, and it's happening all too often, too many of our people are living, and they live past the point of they even know that they are living. That's why when people say it's better to be viewed than better to be seen than viewed, I don't agree with that. Because if you don't know that you exist, or you may be in a nursing home and you can't do nothing but just lay on your back and open your mouth so they can feed you. I guarantee there are people who are praying, Lord, just put me to sleep. So I want what's best. I want what God wants. That makes sense? You know, I know some people who have outlived their families. You know, it's nice, 105, 102. Those are nice because you keep living, especially if you're healthy. But think about the other side. Now, you don't put yourself to sleep, but think about what it would be like to outlive all of your family and friends. Really, I mean, we don't think like that. Are we really going to be that happy? Because the people that we're talking about, they don't know us and we don't know them. Yeah. So I just leave it in the hands of God. But if we're going to have longevity, you want to have longevity where you can take care of yourself and you have resources. You don't want to outlive what you have and be a hardship where you can't eat or do anything because there's just nothing there. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And then she was getting rid of all of her nice clothes, her nice shoes, all these really nice furniture. She was just getting rid of it. And I was like, why are you getting rid of all this stuff, nice stuff? And I never forget, she goes, life is about management. Only get what you can handle. And that's what she was doing. I was like, and you got all this money, you write down what you spend every day? You don't need to do that. And she goes, yeah, I need to know how much money I'm spending.
That's why she got the money, because she's writing it down. And don't give, you don't need more than what you need. I operate on a thing now that I only keep in my closet what I have room for. So if I buy something, I bought me a suit in Hot Springs. It was nice. I got on the heavy discount. So got a nice discount, and so I don't use rational. I deserve this. So now when I go back, what happens when I just did this here? Now see, I didn't even know this suit did that because I was just looking at it the other day. So you know what this means, Brother Williams? I'm gonna give this. Yeah, I like to bless. We got a lot of students that I try to do clothing and business stuff for them. So when I go back, I know some students. I'm gonna put this in, get it clean, and take it, put about 4 or 5 ties with it, and bless some students so I can put that other one in my closet, and I'm gonna be feeling good about that one. So you just keep, and that way it keeps you in check. Not that you can't get more and you don't need more, but we don't want to be wasting. Does that make sense? And the more we give, you give the mission. How many heard of AFM, Adventist Frontier Mission? 1 or 2. You know any missionaries over there? Yeah, we had some missionaries. One family is in Turkey, and it's a dark country. So their lives, they can't even identify where they are. And so we brought them to the church. We helped them, and we have some others. What about Maranatha? Right? Anybody? Yeah, Maranatha. You see the church projects and so forth. They're not asking for a lot. What about ADRA? Yeah, you see ADRA with the water wells and those other projects. Now we pour water out, and we won't even drink water if it's not cold. And they're just trying to get water out the ground. So those type of things, when I look, and this is me personal, when I look at some of the stuff that I think I need, and then I look at some of these projects and so forth, I says, you know what, let me just send some money here or there, because it makes a difference. And that's really, in these last days and times, that's what we want. All right, in the back. Where's my man at? Shoot that next one up. Let's transition. Any question else on wellness? Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking about financial wellness, let's say I'm in debt, okay, and I want to become well, so I can get out of debt. Also, don't have any emergency savings. So I have a dilemma. Should I try to pay off at the exclusion of creating an emergency fund, or should I create an emergency fund and then worry about paying off the debt? What do you think I should do?
All right, so many of you all heard about the $1,000 cash. You know, you keep at least $1,000 cash at home for emergencies, and then you pay off the debt. Snowball the debt. There are different schools on debt. Of course, depending on which side you're looking at. The $1,000, if you have an emergency, most likely emergency you have, most of them you should be able to cover with $1,000. The refrigerator go out, you know, if you blow a tire on some of these cars, you know, you ain't gonna, tires now $400, right? So hopefully you don't have to replace all of them. But usually $1,000 can get you pay off something unexpected, because we talk about unexpected while you stay on your debt retirement plan. And that's usually ideal, the $1,000, and then work toward paying off your debt. Now, some people psychologically like to have a lot of money in the bank. If you come from family that you didn't have anything, they'll say, no, I can't, I got to have more than that, and then I'll pay the debt off. But the interest will eat you out. But it just depends. If you really want to get out of debt, then you got to be intentional and sacrificial. And that means you got to cut the cars up. See what I'm saying? You cut them up and pay them off. Right? That means you don't have no vacations. Can we keep it real here? Yeah. Mr. Williams. Speak up louder. I know you can talk loud. Yeah. That debt as well. Multiple streams. We understand what that means? Some people call it hustles. They done made that now. But, you know, you work in multiple jobs. You can do stuff online. And then stop the spending as well. All right, so you get your income tax check back. That's not the time to go, well, I don't know where they go at now, but the shopping, and say, I need to reward myself and get me something, so I can feel good about paying this debt off. Because remember, a lot of it is psychological. And then how you got in debt. But you can file bankruptcy overnight if you get an illness. Like medical bankruptcy is a major problem for people. You go to the hospital, they keep you for a week. You're talking about maybe $100,000, $200,000 medical bill. You know, now some people think that the hospital should be able to fix that. The government should provide health care. People should not have to go in debt because of medical. Because those are things that may not be beyond your control. But in terms of discipline, so the $1,000, which most people don't have $1,000, the flip side was interesting. A lot of people don't take cash anymore. Yeah, you all know that? There are a lot of establishments don't take cash anymore. And so what would $1,000 do? Even if you had $1,000 and you get a hurricane come through here and the credit, you know, if all of the gas lines go down at the gas pumps, you can't even use your card. I do know that, right? Yeah, the electronic stuff go down. You can't use your card and so forth. So how you going to get out of here? So that's why you keep cash and hope that things don't happen. But you got to put it, if you keep $1,000, which is usually the minimum, you put it aside, you got to put it where you can't get it. Buy you a safe. No, seriously, you got to put it where you can't get it, because if not, you're going to spend it. That makes sense? But it takes a lot of discipline. Now, I brought, and I'm going to let you all, you can vote on this here. I've got a seminar on how to get out of debt and stay out. I've got this one on insurance and investments. I have another one on budgeting. That's back there. So I chose insurance and investments. Somebody said, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one to have. But what do you all want to? Insurance investments? Okay. All right. So put that up there. Pastor, don't look at what time sunset? Okay. Yeah. What time sun? Put that up there. All right. So understanding insurances and investments. So this is the basic question now. What is insurance? So these are the things that, how many of us have insurance? All right. So what is it? What is insurance? It's what? Unnecessary evil? Unnecessary evil, she says. Insurance is a necessary evil. Anybody agree with that? Don't leave her out there by herself. Okay. All right, who else? What is insurance? Speak up loud. In case something happens, right? Like you go to the mall and you see some shoes that you want to, you get a new pair of shoes or something, right? All right, in case something happens. All right, like what? Accidents, okay, so unexpected accident. Yes, ma'am. No, I don't want according to no AI. I want you to tell me what insurance is.
Well, I would say
Yes, tell me what you think.
it mitigates your losses.
It mitigates, see there? You see what I'm talking? And that's what the students, what she just did with the students.
Okay, no.
No, not you know what I'm saying. It mitigate, I'm talking about going to that device right there.
Well, that's what I was going to say anyway, right?
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. No, but see, and I don't want, right. And what you gave me from your mouth, that's what I want to hear. I'm saying these students, you ask them something, and they're scrapping for their phone. You know, I'm talking to a management major, senior. And we just talking. I said, okay, what is management? And he's pulling out his phone. I said, wait a minute, man, you're about to graduate. Just tell me what is management to you? You got enough up here. So thank you for that. But that's the problem with the AI and all that other stuff now. People are not giving you, they're not thinking through. They're just giving you something that's already been scripted. And we don't want that. We want to know, what is insurance? You're paying for it. So what is it? Unmitigated, unnecessary evil, unmitigated losses. Peace of mind. Peace of mind. How many think insurance peace of mind? Especially to the beneficiary, right? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. All right, we're going to talk about that. Yes. What did you say? Protection. Protection from what? Risk, loss. Okay. So you may not necessarily get anything back. All right, so what's investments? How many got investments? Anybody got everybody? Okay, so what's investment? Savings. All right. Savings for future purpose. Okay, savings for future purposes, right? All right, what else? Investments. Talk to me. Yes. Go ahead, and then we'll go back.
Something that you hope to get a return on your investment.
Something that you hope to get a return on. A profit, return, okay. All right. Yes, Williams. It makes money for you. All right? So, y'all agree that investment is something makes money for you? I'm just asking, and William said that. I'm just asking, don't come at me with it. That's one part of it. Okay, speak loud. She says one part of it. Well, no, he just gave his, I'm just asking. I'm not, don't get mad at me because that's one part of it, okay? Can you have investments that's unrelated to money? Okay. Children, okay. Can you have investments that give you returns that can save you money even though it may not necessarily be money? Right? Can you? It's not a trick question. It's not, I'm not you don't see a mega cap on me, anything like that, right? Omega cap. I'm just asking questions. We just dialoguing. Okay, all right. Well, let's get into this thing here. Yeah. Okay. Huh? Additional money. All right. Yes. Tell them their Uncle Ted is back here, by the way. They want to know who's up here talking. It's not their grandpa. All right. Let them know this Uncle Ted. You got to watch them grandkids. They'll call you out after a while. All right. So, this is good. If I can get this thing. Click it up here. All right. So MFM, that's Money Care Financial Ministries, LLC. So I started that in 2017 when the Trump administration cut out all those preachers' benefits. We couldn't get those deductions anymore, so we had to shift up a little bit. So I started my own LLC, and basically I do the same thing I've been doing all these 30 years plus with financial literacy and stewardship. Now I just do it under my LLC. Yeah. With all benefits included. So, and I feel good about it. To be a business owner, yes. Yeah, I feel good about it. And one day that'll give me something to do when I fully retire from all of this other stuff. And I thank God for it. All right, so Money Care. So this is part of our life management seminar series. That sounds sophisticated, don't it? Life management seminar series. Okay. So let's see what we got here. So understanding insurances. All right, somebody turn to 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 to 7. That's a big Bible you got there. Oh, mercy. Yes, I can read that all the way back here. I had that little Bible, and this is my devotional Bible. I used to think this was real cool about 25 years ago, but I can't read the print now, so that's why I didn't read a lot of the scriptures. I just gave them to you. Trying to find this little print. I couldn't read it, but it looked good though. Yes. 2 Kings chapter 4, 1 through 7. Now let's read it loud. So everybody, that's some big print. Okay, you shouldn't miss a verse on there. 2 Kings chapter 4. You shouldn't miss no verses on there. I'll hold it for you.
Okay. This is NIV.
That's okay.
Okay. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord, but now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it on one side." She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left."
All right. So this is packed. That's a sermon all to itself, but I'm gonna stay with this thing. I got it, because we're in the teaching mode now. We're not in the preaching. This is teaching. All right, so got a couple questions for you. So the man of God is a preacher. Do preachers die? How many of y'all say preachers die? Sure they do, right? Sure preachers die. Sure we do, right? Yeah. What about prophets? Do prophets die? Do godly people die? All right, so godly people die, right? So the Lord then, in this story, the preacher dies, and he loved the Lord. He wasn't one of them preachers that showed up. He was like Pastor Williams. He's going to visit the members and show up. Some preachers don't always show up like that, but he did his job. But the problem is that the family don't have anything but a jar of oil. So what that means is that you can be faithful to God and still leave your family in a hole. Right? Did y'all know that? So some people say, well, if they're faithful, God is going to provide. How many of us have heard that? The Lord will provide, right? He'll take care of all of your needs. Hold on a minute. It took a miracle. We're going to talk about that. He died. The family was in debt. They had a couple of sons. How do we know the family was in debt? Because the creditors were coming, right? Now, we don't know how he spent his money, but it says all that he had was just a jar of oil, olive oil. That's all he had to. He didn't have a flat screen TV, wasn't a car out there, wasn't assets to sell. He just had a jar of oil. That's all he had. And the family was stressed because you know what happens when we die and you got debt? The bills are still going to come. The creditors are still coming. That's why somebody says put them all in his name. No, that's why some people just put the debt. They don't have joint debt. They'll put the debt maybe in the father's name, and if he goes, then, you can make a case that you don't have to pay the debt because that was his debt. But they didn't have any debt, so the next thing they did was, let me go ahead and move this thing here. All right, so we said, the creditor's coming, and they're going to take the son to be slaves because that's what they did. You owe money, they were coming after your sons, come after your daughters. Now, I'm going to just sidekick here. In the neighborhoods I grew up with, that's what the fish man did a lot of times, and the milkman. And they would go to the single women, and they would leave the milk and the fish, and they would come back because those women needed some support. Now, can I just be truthful? Y'all looking like, man, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's how people made it. So you don't want to put your family into that situation. Sometimes they'll marry you off. If you have, in some cultures, if you have young girls, they'll marry them off. Somebody 3 times as old, they 15, 14. And they marry them off to a 35-year-old man for a couple of chickens or something like that. Yeah, a couple of chickens or a cow or something to take care of them. So you don't want to put your wife and your children in a position where they have to get married if something happens to you. Does that make sense? Right? Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Now, they may get a good man. If that works well, they can send them to church school and so forth, but you don't want to put them in that situation. So in this case, the creditors were coming, and they were going to take them boys and make slaves out of them. So that's to emphasize. So preachers die. I've seen situations in the conference where preachers have died, and we had to scrap money to bury them. We had to scrap money to move the families. In the conference. The man gave all of his years, but didn't make preparation for the family. Kids couldn't go to church school anymore. There was no money. So we have to think about our mortality and understand that it's not about us. Now, some people marry, and the men don't give the wives nothing. When they die, the wives don't get nothing. They may leave the kids something, and they don't care. But that's not God's way. We got to provide for our families. So when you look at the text, there's some critical points. He was a servant of God, active in the church. So it doesn't matter. A lot of good people, they die. Don't matter how faithful you are in the church. The good thing, the one of the things is that, you know what church people do when preachers die? If I can move this thing. You know what church people do when preachers die? Anybody tell me, Pastor? What do? You say they come together. All right, that may be for the meal after the funeral, but what else? What else happens when the pastor dies? You know what the church is going to do? Sister Williams, you know what they're going to call the conference, Dr. Burke, we ain't going to get another pastor. That's what they're going to say. When are we getting another pastor? That's what people do. You know what they're going to ask about the family? Oh, they may call maybe a week or two after, maybe a month, and then they're out of mind, out of sight. They're not going to ask if they're eating or how the kids doing, because they moved on. I'm telling you how church folk. Now, maybe in the Baptist church it may be a little different, because Baptists tend to be more, I tell my members in the Baptist church, you don't have to force a pastor's appreciation on them. You think this, so I'm saying, they do a pastor's appreciation, pastor's anniversary. Pastor's birthday. I had a birthday celebration. When I had a birthday in January, and my wife and I had a 40-year anniversary, and it may have been mentioned. I think they mentioned it from the desk, because we don't get accustomed to loving on the minister and the family. We just take it for granted. Their job. As a pastor, that's the pastor's job. But other faiths, sometimes it's more personal. Maybe because they have the pastor longer, 40 years, 30 years or whatever, but pastors are more revered. In our church, it's more of a business type transition. I'm the pastor and so forth. And it really does us injustice, because pastors, they go through a lot. I tell you, how many funerals, and you love the member, you grieving all the time. People don't think pastors grieve. Pastors' wives and their families, and the sacrifices that they make. And it's a very lonely profession. Because members, they just move on, give us somebody else. And y'all even say it to the pastor's face, give us somebody else. So the wise steward, if a pastor don't provide for his family, if a person don't provide for the family, nobody else will. Even your own siblings ain't going to take care of you. Some of y'all got siblings like that. They'll say, that's your problem. We're not burying them. If they ain't got no money to eat, that's too bad. They should have had something. So that's why you got to take care of yourself. So the family's having some financial difficulties, and the sons are left there. The only thing of value is that debt. All right, so let's go through this thing now. So what are some critical points? Let's put them up there. Keep moving. Let's see. I'm clicking this thing here. All right, so there's nothing in the house that's of value. Husband is dead. No more income. Will your employer keep paying you if you die? How many employers they're not going to, you've been there all them years? And they ain't going to keep paying the check? They're not going to give you nothing. The church ain't going to give you nothing. They give you insurance, whatever they have, but that's it. Put you out of that parsonage. Yeah. So there's nothing in the house. So insurance is there strictly for what? Protection against sudden loss, damage, or activity that results. That's all insurance is. It's just protection. So you driving on 45, you got that car, hope you got some gap insurance. If because they worth less than what you pay for them, right? And somebody hits you and they don't have no insurance, or they're underinsured. What do you think your insurance company's going to do? You think they're going to say, oh, man, you've been with us for so long, we're going to cover it. You think they're going to do that? They're going to say, you got gap insurance? Because your car you owe $50,000 on it is only worth $35,000. You were upside down in it when you bought it. But you said, I'm not going to have no accident. So if you don't got gap insurance, they're not going to pay, and you're going to be upside down, and you still got to pay that bank note off. So now you're in the hole. So insurance is protection. How many of y'all have insurance protection on your home appliances? Anybody? Home Shield? Okay, we got a couple. Does it work? Sometimes you got to fight to get it, don't you? I think when we lived in Dallas, we had American Home Shield. We burned through about 3 air conditioners. Yeah. Well, we got paid. We burned through about 3 air conditioners when we were in Dallas. And then we got home warranty and went through some stuff. But, you know, COVID, it made it a lot harder. And then I said, you know what, I got to start saving my money. I can't keep paying out. But we had a lot of claims. And so it can help if you're cash strapped or if you're in an older house. But insurance, again, is just what? Protection, right? It's protection. How many of y'all own property? You own property. You got property? Is insurance required in Texas? You got to have homeowners insurance. Is that a requirement? Why? Hurricanes, flood. Can y'all get flood insurance here? I know it's expensive, though, because this place floods all the. Usually they don't like to insure you where they know it's going to be an accident. No, that's how they work. In California, they counseling a lot because of all the fires and stuff out there. You can't hardly get insurance anymore. So insurance protects you, right? Now, what if your house is paid off? Do you have to have insurance? All right, now I want y'all to think about that. I'm going to do my Detroit lean on this one. If your house is paid off, do you have to have insurance? Oh, all right. So the banks are the ones that's requiring you to have insurance because they got to get their money out. But once your house is paid off, you don't have to have insurance. But it would be a foolish thing, wouldn't it? I knew a person that had a home, paid for it, and didn't have insurance. And that thing caught fire. And you can't fix it. Now you got to take out a mortgage to fix something that insurance protection. So insurance is about protection. But you may not ever have to file a claim. Isn't that a waste of money? You paying all this money out and you never have to use it? Somebody's looking and saying, what does this mean? Yay, yay, or nay, nay? What is that? You don't know. So if I don't know, should I be wasting money? Peace. Okay, peace of mind. All right. So, yeah, if you're investing all of this money in your asset and you know you can lose it, somebody may break in and steal them diamonds that we, told you don't wear them anyway, right? You know what I'm talking about, pearls and costly array. You're right, but right around. Yeah. And they steal your stuff and you don't have insurance. Then what? Then you're going to be mad at the preacher. Right? So you want to protect your stuff. That's all we're talking about. Yes. Can you self-insure? All right, so are you going to fund everything? I'm just asking for a specific. Now, the thing when you say self-insure, you can get insurance, obviously, and you're paying a premium. Or what some people will say when they self-insure is that I'll just cover my own losses. But you got to have some deep pockets. I mean, you got to have money that people ain't, if you out $2 or $3 million, that ain't no, that kind of money. You follow me? Most people don't have the kind of money you'll never be able to spend. So you want to have insurance to protect your car, because if we carrying a mortgage on it, if we carrying a car note, that means then if we couldn't pay cash for it, that means we couldn't afford it. Now that's what the hardcore financial people will tell you. You listen to Ramsey and some others, I listen to them and I'm just cringing. That's that privilege. I said, I'm from the east side of Detroit. If we go by that, a lot of our people couldn't even go to school and go to college. But hardcore people say, if you can't pay cash for it, you can't afford it. So since we can't pay cash for a lot of this stuff, the insurance protects us from unexpected loss. Now this is the big one here. Should we have life insurance? Somebody said, I heard one, Gabriel said yes. And she's the only one I'm listening to. Yeah, how many said we should have life insurance? How many said we don't need life insurance? Some people say, Ellen White said, we shouldn't have life insurance. And now she talked about life insurance companies that may have been corrupt, but why should we have? Okay, so is there a case not to have life insurance? Okay, what's the case for not having life insurance? Okay, hold on. Let me come over here because I want to make sure they get your words and not mine. Okay. All right, that's okay. Go ahead.
Say if you have investments or you have financial pockets, you don't have debt, you don't have children you have to who are depending upon you, and so if you were to pass away and to die, no one would be passing a hat around for you. You would be well taken care of, your expenses and everything.
So you have wealth accumulation where your family's not going to suffer hardship. That's it. Okay, yeah. So that's an excellent, yeah. And there are people, believe it or not, that have that. So they don't need life insurance because the house is paid, they got money in the bank, and it's not going to be anything for them. But for the majority of people, so how much? Okay, so then if I have life insurance, what's the purpose of life insurance then? What should it be? Is it there to make you rich? So to pay you, to maintain your lifestyle. All right, so to maintain your lifestyle. And then, so is it your current lifestyle or the lifestyle that you always wanted and you couldn't get? Sister Williams? Yeah, it could be all of the above, right? Yeah, because sometimes, what you can do in death, you'll never be able to do in life. I mean, if somebody has $1 million policy and they're only making $60,000, $70,000 a year, and usually the rule of thumb is 10 times your annual income. So if you're making $100,000, you want to have $1 million of insurance. That's usually the rule of thumb. You're making $50,000, $500,000. So if something happens, now God forbid, we're not planning on, and don't be praying, Lord, I love him or I love her, but we're not talking about that. But if something happens, you want enough coverage that's going to pay for the home, you're going to pay for the kids, the wife don't have to worry. Usually because men, we know now you got husbands and wives working, but usually it's the man where your family is taken care of, at least for the next 10 years. That's why you have that protection. So they can adjust, right? So they can adjust. Now, if the spouse thinks that you ought to have $2 million worth of coverage and you're only making $75,000, and they keep insisting that you need more coverage, then you may want to look at that one, okay? Say, why do we need? But some people, they want to make sure that their family's protected. Church, school, and so forth. And that's what you want. Most people don't have any life insurance. And it's expensive. So you hear people talk about whole life, which is very expensive. Term life is basically renting insurance. It's real cheap. So the younger you are, you can get a whole lot of coverage for basically what you eat at the Olive Garden every month, if you eat there. I mean, it's literally that cheap. Now, when you get older, it goes up, but in proportion, and you can buy a 30-year term policy where the premiums stay the same for 30 years or 20 years. And you can grow your family, pay your debts off, and then you got coverage. But it's basically, again, for protection because things happen. And it's peace of mind. Does that make sense? You want peace, because usually the big people's biggest stressors are financial. And nobody's going to take care of you. Let me say that again. People are not going to take care of you. Your family's not, your church is not. So protect yourself. All right? Protect yourself. So you may have to sacrifice some shoes. You may have to sacrifice some vacations, some cruises, or whatever, but you protect yourself. All right? It's strictly protection. And the older you get, the more it costs. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Because my understanding of term life is, you have to project a certain age that you insuring the person or yourself to. So if you outlive that age, then you've paid in all these years and you have absolutely nothing. But if you have whole life is paid out when you die, when the person actually dies.
Like you get something back.
Yeah. So if you have a choice between term life and whole life, why would you choose term life? Because it seems like to me it's a waste of money.
So it's cost. So what happens with whole life is that, let's say $1 million policy, and you're 35. So you can probably do $1 million policy for maybe $50 a month if you're healthy. That's what it would cost for 30 years or 20 years. 20 years, $50 a month. If you do a whole life policy, you may be paying $150 or $200 a month. And so what they do is they'll buy the term portion from your whole life, invest the other amount, and then give you back a percentage of that. So that's how they're able to pay. So you end up paying a whole lot more when you can invest. The argument for term is that you invest your own money. You don't need the insurance company to do it. Because all they're going to do is you're going to pay a whole lot more. You will get money back, but they're going to still make money because they're investing your money. That's okay.
So you paid this term life for 35 years, 30 years, and then when the person, you started at 35, so when the person turns 65, they're still alive. So all the $50 that you've paid them every month for the 35 years, do you get any of that back?
No, you're not going to get any back. But if you paid them $200 or $250 for the same policy, you may get something back, but you're not going to get back, but you're paying out a whole lot more. So the argument people have is that $200, instead of giving them $250, you give them $50 and you take that $200 and you can invest it any way you want to invest it, and you probably get a greater return. Because insurance is not investment. Insurance is protection. But they sell the different policies because a lot of times people don't want to do the work of investing, and you can get a far greater return. But you want insurance. It's like your automobile. How many of y'all have never had an automobile accident? But you've been paying insurance for how many years now? How many years? Tell me how many years you've been paying.
Let's see.
That you're comfortable saying.
Oh, I don't mind. Let's see. 50 years.
All right. You've been paying insurance for 50 years. So it's probably safe to say with these Texas premiums, you probably paid about $60,000, $70,000, if not more, just on auto insurance. You never get that money back. You never get it back. How many have had a homeowners and then have to file a claim? Yeah, but you're not getting that money back. So insurance is not to get money back. Insurance is protect you in case something happens. Now, you may be the recipient of something more than what you paid in. Like, for instance, if your house catches on fire, some of y'all look like y'all got like $500,000 homes in this one here. So let's say you got a $700,000 home. Some of y'all value that. And your house catch fire. You've only had insurance for 10 years. So let's say you only paid $10,000 in insurance. You're probably going to get back, by the time they redo your home, you probably get back close to $1 million. So guess who paid for that? Everybody who didn't have a claim. So you would say, thank God for this insurance. But the people who are paying and don't have a claim, they say, why my insurance going up every year? So that's the thing. You just want protection. Hopefully you'll never have to use it. If you are comfortable with the insurance company investing your money, then you go with whole life or universal life. But most people who are doing heavy savings and investments and so forth, they'll tell you term is cheaper and you get a lot more for your money. And basically, you're banking on the fact that you are going to be here. You know, nobody's smiling because they got $1 million insurance policy, wondering, you know, man, my family's going to really be taken care of when I'm gone. Anybody feel that way? Huh? No, I think about that every once in a while. Because you have to think about, you know, what happens if I'm not here? Because you got to think about how you want your assets, your children, your spouse. And, you know, I'll get there, I'll be thinking, I said, man, they'll be okay. They should be okay. Because you want to make sure they're taken care of. But now when you start basking in that and smiling all the time about how they're going to be taken care of, that's not a good situation. Because you're not going to be here. You follow me? But you got to plan for it. So burial, you don't want your family trying to bury you. They say it costs about $10,000 for a funeral now, $10,000, $11,000 for a funeral. I didn't know that's a lot of money. $12,000 for a funeral. So you don't want your family to have to be coming up with money, GoFundMes and all this other stuff. You know, I thought they had money. You don't want that. You want to plan for your protection and make sure that your kids and your family are taken care of. And when you do that, I guarantee you'll be able to sleep much better at night. You're going to have peace in knowing that my family is taken care of. And when you travel and take those trips, you got to leave. My kids say, why you do that all the time? And we leave in case I die. In case something happens to us, we leave we leave instructions on the desk. Now, I've got to update that, who to call and, you know, what to do and so forth, because people got to handle that business. And to think that we're immune from that, we're just lying to ourselves. And if we handle our business, it's going to make our family, it's going to make things much easier for them. Now, will they be grieving and so? Yes. Will they be sad? Yes. Will they be hurt? Yes. But I'll tell you, you know what? I may have a note in there. Now, take you all a cruise or something and just go and relax and spend some time together and get yourself, you know, and move on with your life. No, that's what you have to do. Because if not, you're going to be there and you're still going to be grieving and you can't do nothing. So that's why you have protection, and you will feel better, by the way. You'll feel better. Okay? Somebody said, what they going to do with all this money? And, you know, what if she remarries? A lot of people worried about that. And some man is going to be driving my Mercedes or something like that, sleeping in my house, or some woman. Now, people spend time with it, but you know what? Let me tell you something. There's nothing you can do. Yeah. And somebody said, well, I don't know if they're going to remarry or not remarry. And then you talk to these women, and they're always quick to say, oh, he can't wait to remarry. You know, women like that's something how quickly women always look at the man. He can't wait to remarry. Look at y'all laughing. I like to see these. Yeah, he can't wait. I said, well, he's not marrying. He's marrying a woman, so evidently the woman couldn't wait to marry either. But I don't want him spending my money. Okay, but I understand that. You know, so you have to. So you have to really, especially if you got blended families and so, you got to think about that. Because somebody else will come in and get control of everything and will leave your kids out. And then that person's kids, if they already got kids, will end up with all of your property and won't care nothing about your family because that's not theirs anyway. So that's why you got to do your trust and your will, your estate plan, and then make sure there's provision that if the person, the surviving spouse, decides to remarry, that their spouse, their kids are not cut out. Because that's a big concern. And that happens all the time. So these things are real, by the way. Y'all looking like they're not real, but they're real. Come on now and say amen. They're real. I was talking to a person and we were he was talking, and it's a very serious situation, Pastor Williams, because a lot of people are losing their spouses earlier in life. And there is concern even with this remarriage. And, who shall she be or he be in the earth made new? Now, I'm telling you, now we're looking, and the person said when Jesus said that he was talking about, there'll be no marriage and giving in marriage and so forth with the angels. He wasn't talking about us. He was talking about another group, because he made us to be fruitful and multiply, so it's implied that even in the earth made new, that activity will continue. And people believe that. And I'm talking about in the Adventist church. And so there's a lot of discussions taking place now with that. So we really have to, because people grieve differently, and some of that is grief and so forth, but we really have to make sure that we have our house in order as much as possible. That's really all we're talking about. Just have things in order. And then pay your debts off. You want to have enough insurance protection to pay your debts off. And then notice what it says, that after the debts were paid off, then you live off the rest. Now that's where investments come in at. So you have to manage the money in such a way where you have money to live off of. Now, I've seen cases where people, what happens when people run into a lot of money that's not used to handling money? You know what they'll do? They spend it. That's why they don't have a problem paying all those billions and millions of dollars out on the lottery. Because they know in about 3 or 4 years the people are going to be broke again. And you see people scratching. Some people are scratching some of these places. The ratings are as high as this pew for people scratching on that spot. And they spend all the money up because what is not worked for tends not to be managed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I guess the dilemma is you work, you save, you pay off all your debts, you have the insurance for them to go, and you say no more vacation. But I guess the dilemma is the generation now, it's like their mindset is run through it till they no more. And so what is the purpose of you working and paying off debts and doing all this for a generation that their mindset is run through it till they no more? Seem like I could run through it till they no more if I want to do that. Why do I need to let them run through it till they no more?
Well, right, and that's a good question. So what happens is that these are your children that we're talking about. Your spouse, well, but you're not leaving money for the whole generation. You're leaving protection for your children. Now, some people are not leaving nothing for their kids. They'll tell you, I ain't leaving them nothing. And they won't even leave them the house. They say they own their own, and that's it. And that's fine. Now, they may leave something for their grandkids. They'll leave something for the grandkids, but they may leave nothing for the kids. But if you have children and you work, that's where the inheritance. Remember the prodigal son went away and he got his inheritance? If the dad had that kind of, if he hadn't been working, he's working so he can leave their children better off, right? And have something they can take care of you. Now, some of them are going to squander it. So you have to be a good steward. Sometimes people may set up a trust. And in that trust that goes over, there's a carryover trust where you can set up, where you can lock up the money for like 2 generations if you got that kind of money. And you'll say, okay, I want them to get no more than $50,000 a year. That's $6,000, $5,000, $4,000 a month. That's how I want them to get a check, $4,000 a month for the rest of their life. That way, that'll be enough to get them a place to stay, get them a cheeseburger, to a whole, do they make what's that whole burger we get? What's that burger, the Possible burger? Possible cheese. Get something like that so that they can have something to eat the rest of their life, but they can't squander the money. Now, you can set up something like that. It's going to cost you a lot more money, but you can set it up because nobody wants to see their children living on the street. You don't want your grandchildren, if they went to church school, that's what you want. And that's why you got to protect and set it up that way so that can be in place. Because they real squander. I read a book from rice paddy to rice paddy. Usually after by the time you get to the 3rd generation, everything is squandered. So you work hard to build a building or build a business. Your kids come after you, they don't have that same sweat equity. And then by the time their kids come, they just spending everything. They don't care nothing about anything. They done took your pictures down and all that other stuff, and they just want the money. So you just have to be mindful of that. But the good thing is that you will not know. You won't know because you'll be resting. But if you leave everything to the church, and we've had this to happen even in this conference, your kids are going to challenge your estate. And we had a situation where a lady left all of the property to the conference here. And the kids kicked up such a fuss that they just ended up giving them the house here. Even though legally they didn't have to do it. Because they said, they did this to my grandparents and this and that, and they did this to my parents, and they knew that's what the parents wanted. We had a situation. Unfortunately.
We did have a situation in one of the churches I pastored where one of the members died, no children, no surviving children, but they were relatives. She left the house to the church. She left all of her liquid assets to the church. But they wanted the relatives, nieces and nephews, they thought they wanted to contest the will. But she had everything in writing. But out of the kindness of the heart of the church, they decided to at least allow the relatives to have the automobile. And but the church benefited from the house and all of the liquid assets. They bought 10 acres of land, and they ended up building a brand new church.
Praise God. So they were kind, and that person who died probably didn't even want them to have the car because they were probably driving around smoking weed or something in it. I mean, seriously, that's why people do it. So, but y'all were very kind on that. Yes, sister.
What does it mean, no more family vacation?
Okay. So, this slide actually follows the one that they died and have no debt. So, when you ain't got no money, see, you were going on vacations. Disney World. Where's some other places y'all like to go? Cruises to Jamaica and all these other places. Gatlinburg. What else? Where else y'all like to go? Europe. Taking vacations all the time. But when he died, ain't no money, them vacations stopped. And now the kids living a different lifestyle than what they were accustomed to. And that's hard on the family. When you used to having nice things, you living in a nice house where you ain't got no roaches or nothing in there. You just come in, you see what I'm saying? You know, everybody's got their own bedroom. How many of y'all kids, you know what they talk about? We doubled up, 2 or 3 in the room, and our kids got their own bedrooms, some of them their own bathrooms. But if the money supply is cut off and now everybody's got to live in the studio, that's going to be hard on that family. So that's what that thing said, no more vacations, because ain't no money. Yeah, so you don't want the lifestyle to change, so that's why you go to this. So that's insurance. All insurance is protection, be it life insurance, term, whole life, health insurance. How many of y'all have health insurance? We complain about the deductibles, but I tell you what, when you need something, it's nice to have it, isn't it? Oh, yeah. I just had to get them points up. I had to get them, raise them points, so my insurance wouldn't go up. But yeah, health insurance. What else we have? Accident, property insurance, disability. Most of us don't think about disability. We slipping. Some of us have almost slipped in the shower this morning. And most people won't die from accidents. They become disabled. And you can't work. And that's why disability insurance is so easy to get, and they offer you all that money. $1 million for this trip insurance. I mean, you've seen trip insurance? You know why they have you $1 million for trip insurance? The likelihood is you ain't dying. You see what I'm saying? When I went to Israel, they were pressing, you need to get this insurance, you know, because anything can happen. And you get an accident, somebody almost stumbled and fell. So I set that $100 and some in. It ain't nothing for those 10 days, 12 days, and everybody paid. They know ain't nobody going to get it. We may have to care flight you out. The likelihood of that happening is so minor, that's why they can sell it so cheap. And you pay for it knowing, and they know that you ain't going to die from an accident, because most people don't. And then they may have a cause in there. Yeah, they said he died from an accident, so they got AI now, and they're going to show that you were texting while you were driving. So that's gonna void your insurance coverage. That's what they do. No, I'm telling you, that's what happens. And you at home, and you doing stuff you ain't supposed to be doing, and then something happened to you, and you know what? You know how they're going to find out? Through your smart TV. Because the smart TV got cameras in it. Yeah. Your computer's got lenses on both sides. And they can see what you're doing. In fact, they tell you don't even put a smart TV in your bedroom. And them TVs will come on their own. How many have had a chance to do the TVs? How many of you all on the morning? They'll come, your TV will come on their own. How many of you all have got up on the morning and your phone tell you 30 miles to the office? How does my phone know every Sabbath which church I'm going to? 30 miles to Fayetteville, 30 minutes. You know, I'm telling you, everything we're doing is being monitored. And so when it comes time to get these claims, they're going to come back and they're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb. But you need the protection. All right, so homeowners, we talked about that. All right, type of insurance, disability. You want disability insurance. Somebody says, my kids will take care of me. Long-term care. Now, most people may not see long-term care. But have you ever been in a nursing home? A lot of people have it. And where you go, now they'll put you somewhere. We live in this Western culture, eats the elderly. It's programmed in us not to care for our elderly, for children not to care for their parents. You're in the way. That's the society we live in. You're in the way. And so the mind says, I've seen people in nursing homes that really should be living at their house. They can take care of themselves. Yeah, but they don't want to be a burden. So they go, Mama, you need to go, Daddy, you know, and you're in this room, and they won't even have you in a nice one because it's too much money. So you in a room, and you got people, you never even lived that lifestyle. and your mind is sharp. Can you imagine what that must be like? And you seeing people being rolled out on a regular basis, don't even think, you don't even want to think about that. And hope that you never have to experience it. So long-term care now, when you buy your homes and so forth, you got to think about, I want something that I can stay in my house till I die. That's what you want. And what some people are doing, I know in my household we had this conversation, that's why people buy ranch homes. As you get older, people start having surgeries. All the bedrooms, usually homes, when you have upstairs bedrooms, they're cheaper. That's why you can get all of that house. I mean, I can get a whole lot of house. You know why you can get a whole lot of house? Because if something happens to you, you can't make them steps. Now you gotta set up something downstairs and you're gonna be in trouble. So with some people, so I tell people, at least if you buy a house and you know you're gonna stay in the house, have one bedroom downstairs. Because because at some point you're gonna need it. And what happens too, if you have elderly, the house we had in Dallas, when my mother used to come, you know, she had a difficult time making them steps. And when we were in South Bend, we bought a house, all of the rooms were upstairs, she had to stay in the hotel. Because there was nowhere to sleep. Because you didn't have a rest, you had a half bath downstairs. We didn't even think about that because we're healthy and fit, right? But when you get older, you got to start thinking like that. And what happens is health care is a whole lot cheaper if you're at home. Because now they'll come to your house. And that's how you got to be thinking about your investment. Because at some point, if we live long enough, everybody can't negotiate steps. And you're going to want to get to a point you can get in and out and still be independent. The better the facilities, the less you're going to have to depend on your children. Dad, I want your mom to come stay with me, and y'all can't even get a drink of water. You want some juice and so forth. And without the, yeah, they're going to have to, nah, you don't need this, and so forth. And I'm going to give you, you say, you know what, I'm going to get me my own house. You know, I'm not an invalid. I tell people, let them live their life. But that's why you got to think about it. You may not ever need long-term care, but the truth of the matter is that if we live long enough, and I got friends in their 90s, 100, walking around. Some of them still walking around in Huntsville, driving and so forth. And they still, but most people, they start declining when they're 70. Some of them in their 60s if you take care of yourself. So you got to be able to live and be independent. You may not be able to move as fast as you used to, but if you can get in and out of your house, your restrooms, and so forth, then you don't need nobody taking care of you. Does that make sense? And if you got your own money, you ain't got to worry about it. But we have to prepare for it. If we don't prepare for it, the government is not going to take care of you. MEGA is not going to take care of you. Biden, they got money. They filthy rich. All of those people up in there that's doing all of this loud talking, they got money. All right? Does that make sense? They got money. Okay. All right. So remember, insurance is simply what? Protection to replace losses. It's not something for you to, man, I got enough insurance when something happens, I'm going to be able to get that Mercedes now. That's not what you want to get insurance for. This replacement. All right, what's the next one? Protect yourself and your family from the creditors, because the creditors will be coming. All right, Tristan? Stay with me, man. Yeah, you're holding the crown jewels over there. Hold it. Yes, all right. You know how to do it. Yes, he looks good, too. All right, you see all of that there? You want to keep that in the family. You want your family to be happy. You want to be protected. You want to be able to travel and be at peace. And when you plan for it, you got it. Remember, insurance is simply what? Protection against replacement, sudden replacement and losses. Protect your family and yourself from the creditors. Nobody's going to give you nothing. All right, investment, and then we're going to wrap it up. Ecclesiastes 11:1. So you cast your bread on the water, and you will find it after many days. It took me a long time to try to figure this thing out. But what happens is that with fish, they used to collect fish by throwing bread. Anybody used to throw bread in the water? And what do those fish do? And what do you do after that? You just swat them up there and pull them out the water. That's how you catch them. Well, that's what you do in investments. You can eat for many days. The parable of the talents. You have to multiply. You have to put them to use. And when you put them to use, they grow. The parable of the ant. What do ants do all the time that separate them from other insects? They always working, aren't they? I tell students, you got the ant and you got the butterfly. The butterflies are the ones you see at the gym. They had all of the social activities. You see them around. You know, I tell them usually they're the psychology majors and other majors. They don't want to spend too much rigor. The ants are the ones you always see them in the library grinding it away and at the study halls. But guess what? When it comes time for graduation, the ants already got jobs, internships, graduate school. The butterflies are the ones trying to figure out, what do I need? What can I do? Do you know anything for me? Because of rigor. What do the ants do in the wintertime? You don't even see them. But they're feasting down there. Because that big grasshopper that we saw on the side of the grass that died, next thing you know, the ants have picked it apart and pulled it under the ground. That's what investments are. Investments, we work, we put it away, we live off of less so that we can have more when we retire. Now, if I live off of more and spend up everything now, I'm going to be in trouble. So I've got to spend less than what I have. The Proverbs talked about surplus is in the wise man's home. You know what surplus is? Yeah, surplus is when there's a hurricane coming. The first thing to do, the store is empty, don't they? Water is gone. Y'all notice how quickly water goes when they talk about a hurricane? Essentials are there. So a wise person is going to already have that stuff stocked up. I still have food. I think we finally ate all the food from Y2K. The canned goods and so forth. Y'all remember Y2K, don't you? And man, we had all them canned goods stocked away, but we do the water and things like that because we get tornadoes in Huntsville. I remember what it was like in 2011. That's one of the worst tornadoes ever come through Huntsville. Things were down for about over a week. Power, and you couldn't even get gas or nothing. And thank God we had a little grill. And I was going to get rid of that thing. I said, what we needed a little grill for? And we had some charcoals, and we were grilling the whole week. Beans and, grillers and so forth we had. And so after that, I went out and got one of them big grills. I keep some charcoal in there, bought me a generator. I haven't opened that generator. It's still in the box from 2011. Yeah, hopefully fire. Yeah, I need to do that, though. It's been all these years. And fire it up, get some gas in there. But because it's too late when something happens. So that's why we invest. We invest because we know that at some point we're going to need those returns. So those are some texts that we look at. Parable of the ant. Okay, let me go back here. And as we go through, so what are some investments? In order to multiply your resources, you must be willing to put those resources to use. So we tend to, people of color, we're very conservative. Man, we were taught not to trust the banks. The banks took our money. They took black folks' land. Black folks had a lot of land. They took the land when they started raising the taxes because we had property, but we didn't always have money. So they take your land because you owe $100 in property taxes, and your land is worth 100, 200,000, and they auction your land off for nothing. That's what they did. So you got to have resources so you can cover your expenses. You can be a millionaire and be broke. Now you say, how can you be a millionaire? Well, you can just have you can have a millionaire's net worth in property and and be cash poor. So what good is it to have all that property and you can't do nothing with it? So you want to be able to have assets that are liquid so you can utilize it. People talking about now, buy gold. Everybody hear people talk about buying gold, buying silver, value. The thing is that how are you going to exchange gold to pay your rent, to pay your mortgage? You follow what I'm saying? It's not our medium of exchange. So it may be nice to have, but if only a few people have it, it's not going to do you any good for the masses. So you have to just think about that. And as you think about your investments, nothing wrong with it, but you have to balance your portfolio. Seeds don't grow if it's never planted, neither will money. So if I take $1,000, that's the only thing, the cash, and I leave it in my safe, 10 years from now, it'll still be $1,000. But it won't be worth, it'll probably only be worth 70% of what it is today. Yes? Yeah, you're right. And what happens is that people tend to want to have access to their money. And if you invest it, you can get a greater return, but at a greater risk of loss. And a lot of people can't take that because you don't have that margin. You know, I'm the type of person, if I drop a quarter in here, I'm gonna be all over trying to find it. Some of y'all like that too. Man, I lost a quarter in here. I need to find that quarter. Now, some people can lose $10 and don't think anything of it. $100, you can just drop it in, but everybody's not like that. So when it comes to your investments, if you're young, you don't want to leave it at 2%. Yeah, yeah. Right.
Now it's whatever, 0.2 or something like that. So you got, let's say, for you have $10,000, you have it tied into your savings account. At the end of the quarter, you only don't get maybe $100, something like that. Not even that. So how can
Well, that's about 4% right there. Yeah, yeah, they're not what they used to be. So if you're gonna build wealth, then you're gonna have to invest in risk. That's the key. Now, and that risk is talking about companies and things that may or may not make it. So you got to be willing to lose your money to grow your money. But as you get older, we don't have recovery time like that. You know, that $10,000 may take me 5 years to save up. Whereas if I'm in my 20s or 30s or 40s, that's why people, when they play the stock market, they tell you if you leave it in there 30 years, you'll be okay. But now when you're in your 60s, you don't have 30 years. So you have to adjust that portfolio because you're going to need your money. But if you don't do anything when you're younger, you're not going to have anything to adjust when you get older anyway. And that's what hurts us as a people, because we come from families, first of all, that we're not taught this. By the time we figure it out, now I'm already 45, 50, and I'm trying to save. So, you know, we have to educate our young people to understand how to grow money, and that's why that personal finance class that we teach in Oakwood is so important. Because we got young people graduating, and they don't know anything about investments or insurance, because it's not in anybody's degree program. And just because you got a high-paying job don't mean that you know anything about money. no more than the car salesmen know how to fix cars. They know how to sell them, right? People at the bank, a lot of times they may, I tell people, and we're going to talk about this, even when people choose their majors. When people talk about investments, when people go to major, so for instance, our tuition, and we one of the cheapest schools, I think it's $32,000 a year. That's what they told me. That's what it costs to go to Oakwood. 32 grand. That's a lot of money. But some schools, I had a friend of mine, his son, his tuition was $85,000 a year. Some of them pay more, $100,000 a year. Now, why do they pay that? Well, they pay it, those degrees that they're getting, there's a lot of conversation about degrees that they're saying it's not worth it. But people pay it because they think they're going to get a return. And that return may be a name association, it may be, in marketability and so forth. But at the end of the day, you have to look at what am I looking to get from my money. So I tell students, when you choose a major, if you choose a major, a business major, and you're a C student, you're going to have problems. Unless I tell them, if you're an accounting major, you'll still get a job, even as a C student. If you're a management major, marketing, you're a C student, you're going to have problems. If you're a finance major, you may be able to make it in something because of the rigor. But the investment is A's. The more A's you get, the more money you're going to earn. So you're not coming to college and paying all of this money to get C's so you can hang out at the gym. And that doesn't make sense, does it? You're paying all of this money to get C's, and then you can't even interview with a lot of recruiters because you got a C average and you need at least a B average. So you are investing in yourself. That's what I'm telling them. And that investment is going to pay off. Degrees make a difference in life earnings. It creates opportunities for you that you never would have had. But I tell people, so do trades. A lot of our students don't think about trades. They look at the person with the trade and they say, man, look at that plumber. He's all dirty and, jeans torn up, and I don't want to get under nobody's house with rats and so forth. But that plumber is making $200 an hour. And you going into the bank with a suit on, and you're only making $25 an hour. So you look good and fresh and nice cologne, but you ain't making no money. So I tell people, you have to look at where are you going and where do you want to go. And that's important. Not just selling products. Not just selling. I love for everybody to be a business major. But everybody can't be a business major. I tell them, what is your passion? What is it you want to do? Because that's what you're going to tend to be successful at. But I'll tell them, if you want to do music, and I think music is nice, you better minor in business. Because that music ain't going to pay for you. How many jobs you going to get with music coming out? Told the person, how many jobs you going to get with a psychology degree coming out? You got to get a master's or a doctorate. Now, that's just the reality of it. Now, you can major in it, so I'll tell them, you better get a marketing minor. Because marketing and psychology go together. You make A's, you'll still be able to get a lot of those business jobs if you don't work for you the other way. They say, okay, Doc, I'm telling you, I tell theology majors, don't just come to Oakwood and major in theology. You're going to be in trouble. And most of them don't listen to me. And then they come out and they can't get a call, they can't get a job. And I'll tell them, look, man, if you get a business minor, you can get a job working in the conference office, in Treasury, with a minor. And then you can get a little church. They still give you a little church on the side. If you want a pastor, they say, oh, I never thought about that. And I tell them, I'm telling you, because there's a need for this. You can always find preachers, but you can't find people to run that money. And you can do both. I tell them, you can do both. I love preaching and stuff. All my degrees are in business. I lasted 2 weeks in Greek. That's why I didn't end up with a minor. I said, ain't no sense in me lying to myself. I'm not going to get out of Greek. So I'm just going to be a good local elder. That's what I said. That's all I wanted, to be a good local elder. And then I went to the conference office in the treasury. I pastored for 9 months, came into the treasury. And then when the pastor left out of McAllister, I followed him there, did that for 3 years, pastored another little church. This is the longest I've ever pastored, but I've never pastored on a full-time check in the conference. I was always doing something else. So you have to, that's all part of your investments. Yes.
I know when I was younger, and I went home, but I left home, but I went home, I worked at bank. So I worked at bank from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And then in the evening time, I went to work again.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked from 6 o'clock to like 9 o'clock at night. So sometimes you have to work. Another example is in the military, we work from 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. When I was in Germany, from 6 o'clock in the evening until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I worked in a little small restaurant. Made a little bit of money. So sometimes it takes work. And,
Yeah. And work is a blessing. How many days should we be working anyway? 6 days. Not 5, not 4. 6 days. And you're off on the Sabbath. And work is a blessing. 6 days. The devil is saying we working too much. That's why they're pushing the Sunday thing and so forth. But 6 days. And you work and you develop multiple skill sets. Because the more you develop, the more you invest, and that's what we're talking about in investment, the greatest investment you can make is in yourself. If you invest in your skill sets, you'll always be employed. And that's what we tell students. That's why now in the School of Business, starting next fall, entrepreneurship is going to be a required class for every business major. They have to take it their first year. Because we want the business majors to start thinking about owning their own business, not just coming out trying to work for somebody else. That's what we're doing in the School of Business. Some other programs make it a requirement for every student who come to the universities. They have to do entrepreneurship and personal finance. But we're gonna start with one and go from the other. All right, we're wrapping this thing up. So God's return. So you got different investments. What does it profit a man or woman to gain the whole world and lose their soul? So it doesn't matter how much we have. If I'm lost, if I'm working myself and I'm lost, then it was all in vain. So I want to live in such a way where I can enjoy the things of this world, to be happy doing what I'm doing, and be ready for Jesus when he comes. That's the ideal. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. And if I find a career that I'm doing that I love, which only about 20% of the people working actually love their jobs. Maybe 25%. Most people go to work, they hate their jobs. They hate it. They'd rather do something else, but they can't. And it's not all about money either, because once you've made money, money is not a lasting motivator. So if you find something that you love, and it's helping you toward the kingdom, you got it. Because most people never going to have that. So seek first, and be faithful in returning your tithe and offering, because that's an investment. All right, so what are they? Personal investments, financial investments, education matters, trades matter, right? Self-improvement, health and fitness. If you take care of your body, you can keep your clothes longer. Did you all know that? Come on now, you buying those expensive clothes and you can't even wear them. But if you take care of your body and it looks good on you longer, that's a blessing. If you take care of your car and don't dog it out, it'll last you 25 years. You don't have no snow and ice in Houston. 30 years. Instead of buying one every 4 or 5 years because you done tore it up. You know how much money people spend just on cars and clothes and going to the doctor for things that because we don't take care of our bodies. So when you think about investments, you got to think about more than just money, because all of that stuff eventually starts costing money. You buy a house, fix it, paint it, stain the fence, clean the carpet, keep the floors clean. That make sense? Yeah. Take care of your stuff. Beware of the pressure to gain wealth. Somebody says it's all about money. It's not all. You can't take that stuff with you. It's about enjoying life. Okay. Well, first we live on less than what we earn. And the difference of that's our investment. But it's what you invest in. I don't know who's calling me. Oh, mercy. Well, this is Sister Rap. I have to call her back. It's what you investing in. Because remember, you got yourself, your health. How many of y'all like to walk? My wife loves to walk. All right? But you can't walk in cheap shoes, can you? You gotta have like $150 for a gift with those Coca. What are those? What are those shoes? Hokas. Yeah, Hoka, right? Gabriel Hokas. That's what your Auntie Vicky likes. Hokas. Them things will cost about $160. $170. But your feet, if your feet are torn up, right? It makes a difference. So walking, wearing good clothing so that you can keep it. You wash it, right? When we buy our shirts, you don't want them shriveling up after you wash them one time. You get your suits and so forth clean. Those are investments. They told me a good suit. I didn't know that. Always thought the more you clean them, the better they are. But they said, no, you shouldn't be taking the suit to the cleaners no more than 2 or 3 times a year. That's it. I said 2 or 3 times a year. That means you have to rotate them. So you shouldn't wear a suit no more than once every month and a half. There, Tristan. You can go to the grocery. So now you got a license to get you some. And you rotate it every 5th, every 4th Sabbath, and you wear it. That way you don't have to. You keep it longer. And if you take care of your weight, you get 30 years out of them suits. Take care of your weight, and you look good in them. So those are investments. And then you can take that money that we're putting on other stuff and use it. They tell me with walking shoes, you shouldn't wear them no more than 6 months if you're doing a heavy walker. That's unheard of where I come from. Man, we kept them shoes for 3 years, 4 years playing, and you can feel the cement on them when you were walking them. But you tear your feet up. Yeah. But somebody says, I can't afford that. Well, can you afford your body being broken up? Because you're not doing the right thing. So that's how you have to invest in it. Cheap cars. Man, we drove from Miami. This about a couple of weeks ago. We went to Miami, we drove home, we detoured to Jacksonville, Florida. Have you ever been on? Some of y'all been on it. We detoured and went to see somebody in Jacksonville, got back in the car, and drove to Huntsville. And that's about 1,000 miles. But you know what? When I got out of that Tahoe, I was worn out for that night, but I was fresh the next morning. It makes a difference. When I had that little Chevette, when I started ministry, it didn't have no air conditioning. I drove a car for about 6 years before I was able to get an air conditioning. Well, my wife had the air conditioning car. And when I got in that Maxima, it was about 6 years old, I felt like I was in a brand new car. It takes care of your body. Those big vehicles that we look at and say, why are they driving those? If you do a lot of miles driving on the highway, them SUVs will take care of your body. You can't be in, I see people in them little cars. I used to be trying to worry about gas mileage, and you got a family of 5 in a car that only sees 3 people, and you driving across country, you tearing your body up. Don't get hit, and you can't even get out. So Those are investments. You got to protect your family. You got to protect yourself. So if you spend a lot of time in your car, you need to get something nice that your body's going to feel good in, that you're going to feel good in. Now, you may have to sacrifice for it, but you're going to feel good about driving it. Don't get something, and when you work it, it's like a good seat, a good chair. I used to say, why are they paying all that money for these chairs? And I went and got me, I sat in a Serta, one of them Serta chairs, and I'm in the office all the time. I said, man, I didn't know that you can see the hours on them. Some have like 4 to 5 hour chairs, 6 to 8 hours, and 8 plus. I didn't know what that meant. I'm in the office for 10 hours, sitting in a 3-hour chair. And when you think Tristan work over that one, and you're sitting and you can feel the board on your backside. How many of y'all know chairs like that? And when you get up and so forth, and I got in a Serta, they had about 50% off. And I said, man, this thing, and you can feel that foam all over. And I got me one of those, and I was tempted to get one for my wife. I was tempted, yeah. And I ended up giving her, I had a good chair in my office that I took home, and I got me another Serta. I had to wait till they would heavily discount it, but I'm saying all those years, but my back and so forth, those are investments. Those are investments. So that's how you have to think about. All right, we're wrapping this up here now. So you got different strategies. People who sell you investment services, that's how they make their living. Traders are going to get paid whether they make money for you or not. So they're not doing you a favor. So you have to be wise in terms of what you want to do. You see that house, that 401k? We can't take anything with it, but we want to make sure that when we have it, we take care of it. That makes sense? Where you live at, the neighborhoods, because you want to take care of your family. Ellen White talks about dangerous extremes with people who are, she says, some are not discreet and would incur debt that might be avoided. Others exercise caution that savors of unbelief. By taking advantage of circumstances, we may at times invest means to such advantage that the work of God will be strengthened and built up, and yet keep strictly to right principles. So timing is everything. That's what she's talking about, and we have to be acutely aware of that. You can make it happen. If you don't do anything, nothing will be done. Nobody's going to do anything for you. But what you put in is what you're going to get out. You can make it happen. Pastor Williams, that's it? That's it, man. Come on up. Close it out. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, Sister Velma.
When are you coming back for another part?
I don't know. Y'all have to talk to the pastor about that. I don't, you know.
How do you find a good advisor?
How do you find a good advisor for what? What are you looking for? Like investments? All right. So there are a couple of things. You know that there are different companies. You got Edward Jones. You got Merrill Lynch. You got, where do you bank at? Wells Fargo. So they probably have some investment people in there. It just, you got to know what you want though from them. Yeah, he's with Bank of America. So what you do, you have Elder Stevenson come up. Elder Stevenson, and he can give you a similar, this is what he does. See, I told you, I'm just an emergency room doctor. Didn't I say that at the beginning? I'm here to patch you up, put a Band-Aid on you and so forth. Now you're talking about a surgeon. And that's what Stephen, and you got a surgeon, you got people in your church in these specialty areas that can give you surgery advice. Okay? And also, you know, I mean, I listen to, he makes me mad sometimes, Dave Ramsey, of listening to him. But they have really, I mean, they're very conservative. Very conservative. But I trust and believe, obviously, the principles that he talks about. Now, some of it may be a little extreme, but they have some people, if you're looking for conservative type investments from people that are biblically based in principle, then that may be a good source as well. But you got the banker here and you have others, you can have them do a general seminar, and they can refer you to somebody. Or if you know, now I'm, if you don't, if you want to talk to somebody you don't know, see the thing with church members is like a two-edged sword sometimes. If you cross me up, now I got to sue you. So that tells me, that told my car transmission went out on my daughter's car. The head elder owns a Christian body shop, mechanical. I was calling him to find out about the transmission. He said, Pastor, bring it to my shop and I'll fix. I said, Elder, I love you, man. And if you don't do right, then I'm going to have to sue you. He said, bring me that car. He fixed it, a year's warranty on it, and so forth. But everybody can't do that. So, but there are people that you can check that option, and you can check with some others, and we'll get you, we can point you to some people. Some people work with investors here. They can refer you to some people they work with that you trust.
Dr. Brown, are there a couple of books that you can recommend to my, my church family?
Okay, so
You have a library and a half.
I like Dave Ramsey's books.
Okay.
I listen to him. The old school was Larry Burkett. Remember Larry
I've heard of
Burkett?
him, yes.
There's a book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, I have that one.
Yeah, that's a classic right there. So I usually give that to the students, but Larry Burkett, Dave Ramsey's book, if you talk about managing money. And then Chris Hogan has a book on building wealth. Dennis Kimbrough has a book on black wealth. For those who are trying to, they interviewed all of the millionaires and talked about strategies, how they made money with real estate and things like that. But I like Kimbrough because he addresses, black folks experience a little different. Because somebody can come out of they can be a high school dropout, and if they're much lighter than you, they can still get a job at the Wells Fargo. We come out, you got to have a master's degree and 20 references, and they may or may not still give you a job. So it's not a level playing field. But if you're looking to read The Richest Man in Babylon, Chris Hogan's book on wealth, and Dave Ramsey, but if you need investment counseling, then you've got the young man here that's with Bank of America. You have Edward Jones, but those people are traders, and they make their living off of that. You with Wells Fargo Bank, so they may have people to do investments and so forth. But I would talk to some members as well. You got financial people here and kind of see what they're doing, and they may be able to direct you. And you can get your hands on them and tell them, if you don't do me right, it's going to keep you out the kingdom. That's what I tell the members first. So that's what I would do, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. 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 The farming, the land has been bought up by these investors. Yeah. Right. And you know who sold that? The farmers' children. Because they're not farming. And you have, if you, yeah. Wouldn't, a part of agriculture. Right. Now, one of the schools, Alabama A&M actually offers a degree in agriculture, and they have farming. And Oakwood, we're doing some stuff. I think the challenge is a lot of the farmers across the country, because they're growing food now more genetically, are being paid not to farm. And the Huntsville, that used to have a lot of farm, and you start getting that hunt, they're wiping all of that land out, and they're building and so forth, because they're growing food now more genetically than they were before. It's going to be problematic. Yeah, yeah, and people have to, and the thing is that whatever people do, they want to be able to live and take care of their families. And farming, if you haven't been raised up in it, some of us are doing well trying to maintain a farm in our little garden, right? How many of us got gardens and so forth? I'm telling you, it takes work, doesn't it? So, but no, that's a conversation that eventually I think is going to backfire in this country because people have been, well, they're growing it genetically. Yeah, that's what's happening. They're growing stuff up now in labs that you don't have to, you can just put this stuff in there and it grows itself and then people just pick it. But it's dangerous because they control the food supply. Yeah, you don't know. But that's an excellent point. Anyone else? This is it. Thank you so much. You look like you were interested. Now, when the pastors, when they said, can he get him back, the pastor, you notice he just looked the other way. He didn't say anything, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm happy.
He knows he's always welcome here at the Berean
I have been
Church.
blessed. Thank you so much.
This is my good friend, and Dr. Brown, this is your church whenever you're down in Houston. Just know, come by and pour in and share with us. How many of you were blessed today by the doc?
Thank you so much.
Good information, and let's continue to grow our wealth, invest, make good decisions so that we can make a difference in the cause of God. Amen? In all of this money that we're trying to get, we have to remember the cause of God. Amen? The church. Amen. I need about $2, maybe $3 million here at Berean. See, now y'all looking at me strange. Yeah, we need about $2 to $3 million here at Berean so that we can take things to a whole nother level. Amen? The record says, ask, and you shall receive. And you have a pastor that definitely believes in miracles. So miracles do happen. We bless God. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody. He was a really blessing to us today. It's a little bit after 6. We still have about an hour or two, a couple hours before the sun sets on this day. But let us all stand, and we are going to have our closing prayer. And we want you all to enjoy the rest of the Sabbath hours. Amen. Loving Lord, our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful to you for this time that we have spent with you, with your manservant, Pastor Ted Brown, who has shared many things with us today, from this morning up until this evening. And we do pray, dear Lord, that we will experience that abundant life through our personal relationship with you, despite all of the challenges and changes that we see in our world today. We pray, dear Lord, that you would bless us to make good financial decisions, individually as well as collectively, that we would also find meaningful ways to invest more of our wealth into kingdom building, because we know that soon and very soon you are coming again. And so, Lord, we know that there are many souls that we must continue to reach in this generation. So, Lord, I pray your blessings on each and every person here tonight, this evening, everyone that joined us online today. We pray your continual blessings on them as well, and that as we leave, that you would just continue to guide us in the new week ahead. Bring us back together at the appointed time. I pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Let the church say, amen and amen. Thank God.